She invested every penny she had into her daughter's dream cafe. But the day they treated her like just another customer, she didn't argue. She made one phone call that brought the whole operation to a halt. You ever spend years building something, layer by layer, only to watch someone else walk in and pretend you were never there? Charlene Drayton was never one for big entrances. At 62, she dressed in soft cotton, wore her silver-streaked coils neatly, and moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had lived through enough. She didn't raise her voice, but people listened. When she spoke, not out of fear, but because her words always carried weight. After nearly 4 decades as a pediatric nurse in Durham, she packed her bags, dipped into her savings, and moved 3 hours south to Columbia, South Carolina, for retirement, not for rest, but for her daughter. Simone Halberg, her only child, was bold, ambitious, and sharp-minded, where Charlene preferred quiet. Simone owned every room she entered, different in style, yes, but bound by a shared love, food, not just eating it, but the stories behind every dish, gumbo stirred during stormy nights, peach cobbler made from fruit that wasn't perfect but still sweet, collard greens simmered slow with turkey necks every Sunday. That was their dream, a cafe where culture met creativity, where soul food wasn't drowned in grease but celebrated for its roots. They found a tiny corner spot just off Rosewood Drive, worn-out floors, dim lighting, a kitchen that hadn't seen a hot plate in years. Simone had doubts, but Charlene could already see what it could become. She scribbled plans in her notebook and got to work. Licensing, handled. Health inspection, passed. Lease negotiation, done. When the landlord raised the deposit last minute, she drove to Charleston and bought a whole kitchen's worth of used gear from a retired chef. She even painted the walls herself mustard yellow, just like her grandma's kitchen back in '63. Simone, meanwhile, crafted the look and feel branding name, logo. She chose Halberg House. Sleek modern. Charlene thought it felt a little cold, but she kept quiet. This was her daughter's moment. She wasn't there for applause. She was there to make sure Simone had a smoother path than she did. When the doors opened, things moved slow. A few curious college kids tried the cornbread. Some came back for the matcha waffles. By month, 3 lines wrapped around the block. Instagram foodies snapped pics of lavender fried chicken. Reviewers called it the freshest take on Southern classics in years. Simone insisted her mother be there for every tasting, every meeting. You give this place heart, she'd say. Charlene enjoyed helping the new cooks find their rhythm, showing them how to sniff out overcooked yams without even looking. She'd sit at her corner table, chatting with customers about old recipes. It felt like home, but success has a way of shifting things. And slowly, Simone began to change. By month 6, the cafe was a sensation. If you drove by on a weekend, you saw people lining up just to post their shrimp and grits. One food critic called it a soulful uprising. Another said Simone was the next Carla Hall with better style. Simone leaned into the spotlight, started wearing tailored jumpsuits, aprons with her initials stitched in gold, heels in the kitchen, interviews, live streams, plans for a second location. Charlene cheered her on. She really did. But it was like watching someone drift away while pretending to stay close. The team began to change too. At first they were locals, kids from nearby colleges or neighbors who could throw down in a kitchen. They respected Charlene, called her Miss C, asked her to bless the grits before service. But then came the new hires. Trained chefs, out-of-towners with big ideas. They didn't know Charlene, didn't ask. One of them, a young sous chef from Vermont, called her ma'am, and told her to stay clear of the prep station. She chuckled at first, brushed it off. But then Simone's words started shifting too. You don't have to come every Thursday. Ma'am, we're just trying for a more refined look. Charlene would nod and leave quietly. But when she got home, she'd sit at the edge of her bed, asking herself what she'd done wrong. She wasn't angry, just ... slowly vanishing. One day, she walked in and found her usual stool gone, replaced with some designer chair from a catalog. The kitchen didn't smell the same. The garlic was gone. Now, it was lemon zest, and the cornbread, it had saffron in it. Charlene had never used saffron in her life. She tried bringing it up. Simone just said, "This is what evolution looks like. It's a new chapter, mama." But in Charlene's gut, it didn't feel like change. It felt like being erased. Saturday morning felt off from the moment Charlene pulled into the alley behind the cafe. She had come at the same time she always did, balancing a tray of warm sweet potato muffins wrapped in a clean towel. Usually, the back door was cracked, open with a brick, letting the early air in, but today, it was shut tight. She knocked twice. No answer, then 3 times. Still nothing. She waited a moment, then used the side entrance. Inside, the usual clatter of pots and morning prep filled the air, but no one looked up. A hostess, young unfamiliar, saw her and hesitated. "Can I help you?" the girl asked. Frowning, Charlene smiled gently. "Just here to drop these off." Before she could step further, Declan, Simone's new general manager, stepped in from the kitchen like he'd been waiting for her. "Hi, Miss Drayton, right?" "Actually, Simone's asked that we keep the back clear for staff only from now on, just for flow." Charlene stood still, the warm tray in her hands. "I've been bringing these every Saturday," she said softly. Declan gave a tight smile. Right. We know, but we're trying to streamline things. Maybe you can call ahead next time. Before she could reply, he motioned to someone behind the counter, and the young hostess gently took the tray from her hands. We'll be sure to set these out, she said quickly, before disappearing into the kitchen. Charlene looked around. The cafe she helped build, painted, cleaned, stocked, and dreamed into existence suddenly felt unfamiliar. She wasn't angry. She didn't raise her voice. She simply turned and walked out the front door, unnoticed by the new team buzzing behind her. She got into her car. Her hands rested on the steering wheel for a long minute. Then, she reached for her phone. No hesitation, just one call. By the end of the day, the locks were changed. The staff showed up Monday morning to find a handwritten note on the glass. Closed for restructuring. Ownership Simone came rushing in half an hour later, confused and flustered. Inside, Charlene sat calmly at her old corner table, wearing the same soft dress, sipping tea from her favorite chipped cup. I thought you were done, Simone said breathless. Charlene looked up, her voice even. I never left. You just stopped seeing me. Image prompts. She absolutely can. Those 3 words hit like thunder. Simone froze mid-step then. Without saying another word, she shoved past Declan, took the stairs 2 at a time, and burst into the kitchen. Everything stopped. Staff turned their heads. Conversations cut short, fingers tapping at phones. The room shifted from busy to tense in a breath. Everyone stop what you're doing. Simone's voice cracked through the air. Just stop. But she was already too late. Sierra, the dishwasher, stood motionless, face pale. They said, I'm fired, she whispered. What did I even do? Andres raised his phone. Same here. I just walked someone out like I was told to. Simone turned in disbelief. Who sent these messages? Drayton Holdings? Gage murmured, eyes still locked to his screen. Simone's chest sank. That name, it was the trust her mother had set up. When they signed the lease just in case. Charlene had told her plainly, years ago, never forget who actually owns this place. Simone had nodded at the time, not really listening. Now, everything was unraveling. Declan moved closer, voice low. What do you want me to do? She didn't respond right away. Her eyes scanned the empty dining room. It still held the sound of past meals, forks tapping plates. Her mother's laugh echoing near the windows. She remembered the yellow paint stains under her fingernails. The photo wall Charlene had built near the bathroom, filled with snapshots from their opening week. And now, her staff was gone. Her cafe was silent, and she hadn't even seen it coming. What does this hold mean? She asked finally. Swallowed. Effective immediately. All operations are suspended. Staff found violating internal values have been dismissed. Simone blinked. That's nearly everyone. She pressed her hand to her forehead. Her fingers smelled faintly of lemon and oil. And then she saw it. The tray, still near the front register. One of the muffins had a bite taken out of it. Just one. Like a message left behind. Charlene hadn't come to fight. She had come with warmth. They responded with policies. This was the outcome. I need to talk to her, Simone said softly. Declan shifted. It might not be the best moment. I don't care. She turned and walked out the door without another word. She still had citrus under her nails when she knocked on the door of her childhood home. Come in. Charlene called from inside. There she was, seated at her small wooden table, sipping ginger tea with a lemon slice floating in the cup. Simone stepped in, jaw clenched. You shut me down. Charlene gave a slow nod. Yes, you fired my staff. No, she said calmly. I fired my staff. You just forgot they were mine. 2. Simone took 2 steps in, her voice rising. You humiliated me. Charlene didn't flinch. No, you did that to yourself. I just cleaned up the mess. Simone sank into a chair across the table, deflated. Do you even realize what this looks like? What people will say? Charlene stirred her tea. People always talk. What matters is what you do next. Simone stared at her. You think, I don't respect you. Charlene raised one brow. I think you stopped remembering what respect looks like. In the stillness that followed, Simone wasn't a business owner or a celebrity chef. She was just a daughter, sitting across from the woman who taught her how to carry herself. The old kitchen clock ticked above them. The soft wooden clack she remembered from childhood. Charlene didn't speak. She didn't need to. Simone finally broke the silence. You blindsided me. I warned you, Charlene said, quietly, over and over. I asked you to lead with care. You didn't listen. So now, this is the conversation. You should have given me a chance to fix it before you shut everything down. Charlene met her gaze. Your chance was the moment I was walked out of the kitchen like I didn't belong. Simone lowered her eyes. I didn't know they would do that, but you let it happen, Charlene replied. That's the part you haven't faced yet. Simone dragged her hands through her hair. I wasn't trying to erase you. I just wanted to make it cleaner. Modern, efficient. Charlene leaned. And since when does professional mean forgetting who helped you build it? Simone tensed. That's not what I meant. Charlene's voice didn't waver. Then tell me why my name isn't on the wall anymore. Simone blinked. What? The plaque, Charlene said. It used to hang near the register, founded by Charlene Drayton and Simone Halberg. It's gone. Simone swallowed. She hadn't even noticed that. Charlene shook her head. This was never about muffins or plaques. It's about the stories in that space, the history. You turned it into a brand when it was meant to be a home. Simone looked out the window. The porch plants moved with a soft breeze. I didn't mean to. I know, Charlene said gently. But meaning doesn't undo what's been done. Silence hung for a moment longer. I thought I was building something for both of us, Simone said. I never saw myself cutting you out. You didn't have to see it, Charlene replied. You just had to feel it. And you stopped feeling the moment people started tagging you in photos. Simone winced. Charlene stood, walked to the cupboard, and pulled down 2 plates. She placed a muffin on each one and slid one in front of her daughter. Eat. Simone looked down at it. You still made these? After everything? Charlene gave a small smile. Some things don't change, but we can. Charlene placed a basket of muffins on the table with quiet purpose. I make them whether anyone asks or not, she said softly. Simone hesitated, then picked one up. She took a bite and the taste hit her hard. It was just like she remembered, from childhood. Her throat tightened. She hated how it made her emotional. Charlene watched her closely. I'm not your staff, Simone, she said, calm but firm. I'm your mother. I've been showing up for you since before you even knew how to spell your own name. Simone looked up at her, eyes misty. I know, she whispered. Charlene leaned back in her chair, arms folded. You've got talent, no doubt about that. But don't let pride erase the people who helped lay your foundation. Simone gently placed the muffin back down and wiped her hands. So, what happens now? She asked. Is it over for good? Charlene sipped her tea, unbothered. Not forever, just long enough to remind folks who actually built this place. Then I'll reopen it with a fresh crew. And a manager who understands that legacy isn't disposable. It's sacred. Simone looked hurt. So you're shutting me out? Charlene paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm not shutting you out. I'm pressing pause. You need time to figure out if you're doing this for the love of food or the spotlight. Simone didn't argue. She just nodded faintly and turned to look out the window. Charlene reached across the table and gently placed a hand on hers. You can come home when you're ready, she said, voice steady. But next time, don't make me fight for my name in a place I helped build. And in that moment, something inside Simone cracked. Not the bond, not the business, just the illusion she'd been gripping so tightly. And once it shattered, all that remained was the truth. She didn't just correct the course for herself. Charlene did it for Simone, for the staff, for every young woman who'd ever walked into a kitchen thinking legacy was just something printed on a lease. Legacy isn't paper. Legacy is how people treat you when no one's looking. It's whether your name holds weight, especially when you're not in the room. It's holding your ground not to block the path forward, but to remind others who carved that path in the first place. That's exactly what Charlene Drayton had done. The next Saturday morning, Drayton and Halberg was buzzing. Tables filled up fast. Families, old neighbors, students from Benedict College. Even one of Simone's old professors showed up, the one who used to grade her college essays. The place smelled of browned butter, hot cakes, and sweet yams with cloves. And there was Charlene right behind the counter, not hidden away in the back anymore, not forgotten. She stood in the center of it all. People smiled as they passed. Some nodded quietly. No one needed reminding who she was anymore. They knew. On the wall, beneath the new brass plaque, hung a black and white photo. Charlene and her grandmother standing over a bubbling pot of gumbo in a tiny South Carolina kitchen. Below it, a small metal plate read, "Our recipes begin with the women who fed us before we even knew what hunger was." Around mid-morning, Simone walked in, one hand holding a notebook, the other carrying 2 big paper bags. Charlene raised an eyebrow. More spices I didn't ask for. Simone grinned. Nope, donations. For the food program. I told Em, you could make anything stretch. Charlene waved her closer. Good, grab a peeler. They worked shoulder to shoulder for almost an hour. Not much was said, but it wasn't awkward. It was easy, natural. The rhythm they used to have slowly coming back. Nearby, Mavis was showing a young cook how to chop parsley. See that? Clean, confident. That's not just muscle memory, that's soul memory. Charlene chuckled softly from the prep counter. Mavis, don't fill their heads with poetry. First, teach them how to clean the station. Mavis laughed. You clean? I'll talk pretty. Even Simone laughed, hands covered in carrot shavings. Later, when the breakfast crowd thinned, Charlene stepped outside. She liked watching the movement from the sidewalk, seeing the cafe through the window like it was alive. She stood near the old wooden bench, the same one she used to collapse onto after morning shifts. Once, she'd sat there feeling humiliated. Now, she stood with a warmth that had nothing to do with shame. It was calm, controlled, purposeful. A young woman walked up. Excuse me, she said. Is this your place? Charlene nodded. It is. I'm visiting from Alabama. My cousin said I had to come, she said. The muffins changed her life. Charlene raised an eyebrow, amused. That's a bold claim for a muffin. The girl smiled. She said. It tasted like someone had forgiven her. Charlene paused, then nodded. Tell your cousin I said thank you, and tell her, forgiveness tastes better warm. She turned and walked back inside. That evening, as chairs were lifted onto tables and the lights dimmed, Simone stayed behind to mop. Charlene hadn't asked. She just did it. This time, no one was trying to prove anything. They were just working together. I was thinking, Simone said, wringing out the mop. Maybe we start Sunday suppers again, once a month. No frills, fewer phones, just people, food, and stories. Charlene considered it. That could work. Simone glanced sideways. You'd run it. Charlene smiled. I already do. They both laughed this time for real. No tension, no pride. Just two women bound by blood, mistakes, and the knowledge that respect wasn't handed down. It was built, rebuilt, guarded, as they turned off the last light and stepped outside. The street was calmed, the kind of calm Charlene had grown to love. Simone reached for the key, then hesitated. You sure I should still have this? Charlene looked her in the eye. It was never about the key, baby. It's about how you carry it. Simone nodded and slipped it into her pocket. They walked toward the parking lot. No titles, no spotlight, just mother and daughter. And Charlene knew menus could change. Recipes could be copied, but real legacy. That's how you make people feel, and that part lasts forever.